Welcome to Spartan Theology. Welcome to a new show that I'm hoping to be a regular thing on the channel that I'm calling Critical Apologetics Review, because I'm going to be looking at the claims of different Christian apologists and looking at them through the lens of historical critical scholarship. So yeah, with that, thank you for coming by. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. That definitely helps me grow. And if you're a returning subscriber, I really appreciate it, and thank you for watching. So, in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at a video from Mike Winger, who's got a really large Christian apologetics YouTube channel. He just hit over 400,000 subscribers. And in this video, he's actually giving a live talk at what I'm assuming is a church, where he's talking about progressive Christianity. So to kind of just lay out kind of how this video is going to go, I'm not going to be playing the whole video. It's a 56-minute talk, and there's plenty of parts in there where I don't really have much to say. So I don't, like I said, I don't want to play the whole thing. I'm going to kind of picking clips, what might look like out of context, which I'm not trying to do. I'm just trying to kind of present my explanation the best I can. So if you're interested, I linked the video in the description, and definitely, if you're interested in really getting an understanding of where Mike's coming from, maybe a little better, you might want to watch his video, but you definitely don't need to. And like I said, I'm kind of just making some points, not 100% to really respond to this video specifically, but more it's really like a jumping off point for a lot of topics that get brought up in these conversations, as well as responding directly to some claims that he makes that I just think are flat out wrong. But like I said, some other parts are kind of a jumping off point to kind of make a larger point that's brought up differently or the same depending on who the apologist is. But with that, we can kind of jump into the video. Like I said, it's a talk he's doing at a church, a live talk all about progressive Christianity, and I think he kind of describes progressive Christianity as almost like a disease that infects a church and causes them to die, which, yeah, I think he's just really speaking to the crowd here or whatever, because he knows his audience, which, whatever. I mean, he's giving a talk. He wants to lay it out in a way that interests people. He knows what people want to hear. So I'm not going to really critique the way he describes it like that, because, I mean, I would disagree. And even myself, who's not really a progressive Christian, I'm kind of on the border there or whatever, which, I don't know. It just kind of depends on, but it doesn't necessarily matter. But I'm definitely not a conservative Christian like Mike Winger. But we'll start off with this first point that he makes about faith, this is one I really want to respond directly to what he's saying, because I think there's some really, really major issues. But we can hear him for a minute or two.
Something else is going on.
Wait, I don't want to play that on double speed. I'll put it on 1.25.
There. So here are some of the symptoms. Faith is celebrated, but not the faith. The Bible uses the term the faith to talk about this is annoying to many progressives, but to talk about doctrines that we're supposed to believe as Christians. So it really does use the term the faith almost like a term for doctrines.
Yeah, so this point he's making here, I find it, the more I think about this and watch this, it's kind of dishonest, because what he's saying the progressive Christians are celebrating as faith is different from what the Bible describes as the faith. But yes, those are different things or whatever. I don't think even the most progressive Christian is going to have a problem, is going to argue with you that those two things, no, those are the same. Because the Bible definitely talks about faith too, having faith in something, and like I said, so just to kind of give my big picture, and I'll kind of support what I'm trying to say. He's comparing purposely, I think, faith that progressive Christians are talking about with the faith, which, yes, the Bible does talk about the faith, and it's definitely different than faith, but the Bible also talks about faith. That's the same thing. They might not be exactly the same, because whatever, you disagree with the doctrines or whatever, but the way he describes it as well, no, progressive Christians, they celebrate faith, but in real Christianity, we talk about the faith, so only its belief in doctrines. That's what he just said. And I'll play him just a second more, and then I'll pull up.
Things you believe about Jesus, he was born of a virgin, and he was in the flesh, he lived a real human life, he didn't sin, he died, he physically rose from the dead, he did this for your sins. This is the faith, and I can give you lots of verses that talk about this, but I'll give you an example. 1 Timothy 4:1 talks about a warning for those who depart from the faith. Now, progressive Christians tend to think about faith as like,
Yeah, see, so he's really comparing it to the faith. And typed in Bible Gateway. I just looked up faith. And you have to skip all these references to get to this First Timothy one. And, I mean, what's he say? First Timothy 2:1, right? Isn't that what he said? Yeah, okay, sorry. I mean, he might have mentioned, which isn't even coming up in this description, but what I wanted to show is just, I just clicked on Romans. That's just a big book that especially evangelicals love to go to, and looked up what Romans had to say about faith. And, like, right here, for in the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the righteous one will live by faith. I don't see this one. I mean, these two definitely are not faith in doctrines of Christianity. That the righteousness of God is revealed from faith. No. And then there was, which one? Yeah, this one right here. First, I thank God through Jesus Christ for you all, because your faith is being proclaimed throughout the world. So, the faith, like he wants to compare it to the faith. So is this really saying, like, because your version of Christianity is being proclaimed throughout the world? That's not what he's saying. Is your faith exactly what the progressive Christian is talking about? This sounds exactly like something that he's kind of critiquing, and this is what Paul says right in Romans 1, right? And then there was, but is righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ, like, yeah. And there's actually, that's why I knew something came to my mind. I wanted to bring up my conversation with Douglas Campbell, which you can find on my channel, where we talked about pistis Christou, which is the faith of Christ, or faith in Christ, which is like this phrase right here that Paul uses a lot. And that's a whole separate argument. But the idea that it's always talking about faith in the proper doctrines of Christianity is just not even on the table. But if you're interested, you can check out that video, like I said, with Douglas Campbell, where we talked about pistis Christou. I think if what I'm saying here kind of interests you and you want to learn more, that's really a good area. But yeah, so he really goes on about this whole faith and the faith. That's just frustrating, and I don't really know why he's doing that. I don't know if maybe I don't know. That just seems like flat out not what a progressive Christian is trying to say. They're not comparing their faith, which is like just their trust and steadfastness and holding to like what they feel is right, which you can just like Mike can disagree with, which is fine, right? But they're not saying that is the faith, like that is Christian. No, that's not what they're trying to say. So Mike is definitely off here, and I don't want to say it's like dishonest, but I don't know. This one was pretty frustrating. Let's try to start. So we skipped ahead just a tiny bit, but here he talks about abandoning doctrine, which is like celebrated in the progressive church, which I'll let him talk.
Abandoning doctrine amongst progressive Christians is totally tolerated because of this perspective that the faith or the doctrines are not central to the Christian teaching, at least not the doctrines that Christianity has typically focused on. The ideas of love are very central, okay, but those doctrines are not focused on. So abandoning doctrine is celebrated even. It's not only tolerated, but it's often very celebrated, so that some people will feel they're brave, and I've seen this in progressive Christian groups. I'm brave. I finally feel like I'm able to like give up the resurrection of Christ. And then people are like, that's very brave. How open-minded of you. And this is not in every...
Yeah, see, this I find to be a bit weird the way he's kind of describing this. I don't think it's just like abandoning doctrines the way he says it. It's like not that through studying and things and you come to learn that you just don't believe certain things that more conservative Christians believe, like inerrancy of the Bible, for example. That's like a big one that I will say probably is like a pretty big dividing line between someone who's maybe like leans progressive at least towards a conservative. Is going to be like most conservatives are going to hold to inerrancy, and pretty much no progressives are going to hold to an inerrancy of the Bible. But that's like one thing. But it's not like for myself, which I don't hold to inerrancy, And for me, it's not that like I just decided one day, like, you know what, I feel like I can do it. I can abandon this belief. It's like, no, I just, through studying, it seemed like it's not true and I don't believe it anymore. And I think maybe what's celebrated in the progressive church is the idea that you can be open and honest about what you believe and what you don't believe, and you don't have to lie to yourself and convince yourself, and any kind of cognitive dissonance, which I think is a great thing. And that's frustrating that he's kind of shooting them down for this, when I think an issue with a lot of conservative evangelical churches is that people probably don't really believe these things. But so, I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying there's probably plenty of people who don't believe things like inerrancy, they just keep their mouth shut. Or even if they find themselves maybe thinking it's not true, they might read a apologetics book that, okay, never mind, I got rid of that, shoot it down quick, or whatever it is. I think they don't generally foster as open of an environment. So either, like I said, either people are just kind of keeping quiet, or they kind of convince themselves, or they just they don't even realize it, and they just, like, the inherent, like, difficulty that they see showing up, which I've experienced myself. The difficulty they see if they do accept a belief just causes them to either not want to study it, or have such a bias when they hear arguments against these different doctrines or beliefs that it's just not persuasive. So yeah, so I just want to point out that I think what Mike is doing here, and kind of painting the progressive Christians as the ones that sort of have an issue with abandoning doctrine, when I think more likely the idea that they're actually, like, what they're actually doing with abandoning these doctrines is not so much abandoning, but just being open and honest about what they've been learning or studying, or these different things. And yeah, I think it's a good thing for the most part, as opposed to the way he's painting it as such a terrible sort of thing. But we're going to kind of skip ahead in the video. He goes on a lot in this next part about different, like, specific people in the progressive movement, and that's just not something I'm super interested in. I'm not really knowledgeable about a lot of these different people, and it's not really part of, so I'm going to skip, like, I think it's like 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes or so, and I'll see you on the other side when we get a little farther into this video. So as I'm going back through this, doing the review, I realized this section is a really large section where Mike gets into a lot of things that I would say are kind of straw man argument against this. It's like a specific group of progressive Christians that hold these beliefs. And while I'm not saying there aren't people out there that do hold these beliefs, I don't want to defend a lot of them. And I'm trying to keep my video kind of concise and to the point. So if you're interested in hearing all of what Mike has to say, I've kind of skipped over a fairly large section here. I recommend, like I said, his videos in the description. You should go check it out if you want to really understand where I'm coming from. But I'm just kind of wanted to pull out better parts that I actually have something to respond to. Like I said, there's a big chunk in the middle here where he just kind of goes off about, like, well, there's these progressive Christians that hold to, this view of that the Bible's important, but it's really not, like, it can be plenty wrong everywhere and all these things. And, like, if that's not really the view I defend, like I said, well, I don't hold to inerrancy. I'm not going to just, like, say everything's wrong. Like, I mean, there has to be some foundation. The Bible is obviously important to Christianity. And I want to do a video more specifically on my view of the Bible. So I'm not going to really, like, go deep into what I think here. But just this view that he's arguing against is not one I would defend. So I don't really see the point in kind of defending it here. But I just think it's kind of like a straw man, because I don't think I just don't think a lot of people really believe the way he does. But I also want to point out one thing, and he, like, tries to point out that, progressives have such weird sort of Christology, their understanding of Jesus Christ and all these things. And I just thought it was interesting that I found this article pretty easily, where it says 30% of U.S. evangelicals do not believe that Jesus is God. Does not. I don't know, maybe I'm not good at grammar, but that seems really wrong. 30% of U.S. evangelicals does not believe. Yeah, that seems weird. And if it's going to be in your title, I don't know how trustworthy this article is. But I saw this 30% number in a few places, and I'm not trying to say this is exactly accurate, but all this to point out is that there's a large part of evangelicals who, like, state to be an evangelical, you basically have to believe in the Trinity. And even 30% of them don't even know what they believe. So it's a little bit of an issue to point out, you know, the way he points out in his video. Like I said, and check out his video if you want to hear all of his points. But just in this kind of middle section where he just goes on about like certain specific progressive authors, Richard Rohr and Glenn Hatmaker or something, who I don't even know really what these people believe. I know Richard Rohr a decent amount, but not this other lady he's talking about. And so I just don't want to. I don't want to defend specific people because I'm no expert or anything. I just kind of wanted to give some of the points where I actually had some good things, good comments to make. But like I said, we'll get into as we go forward. He does start making some other points that I think are worth actually addressing.
Just immediately gonna pull their hair out, and you're like, man, I know progressive Christianity is attractive, but it's just so stupid. It's so irrational. It's so not concerned about the Jesus they say they worship. He's a tool for some other commitment. Jesus is a bobblehead. This is our culture. This is the way we've been for years. Jesus is the
Yeah, so if progressive Christianity is really like just irrational and stupid, then I guess I don't have to worry about then I don't know why you would say like, yeah, just teach people, basic understanding of the Bible and no one will be a progressive Christian. But then why, like someone like myself, who's I think done a decent amount of study and the most of the people I'm learning from have done way more studying than Mike and many other evangelicals, and someone like Mike would call them progressive Christians. Like someone like Dale Allison, he's definitely going to call him a progressive Christian, but yet he's trying to say progressive Christianity is so stupid, right? Like that's why I say, okay, let's really look at what Mike's trying to say. If he wants to say progressive Christianity is stupid, and yet a lot of these smart people hold to it, then let's put your beliefs up to the test, right? And I'll be doing more videos kind of critiquing some specific points that Mike puts forward, but I just thought this was kind of an interesting take on progressive Christianity and the way he sees it. And they're definitely, when speaking to like a live audience at a church like this, I think it's interesting because it gives us a view of how he thinks, just your everyday Christians, maybe less. I'm sure the people he's speaking to here are less educated on these topics or less interested than would watch his YouTube channel. And not to say like anybody just takes one more step to kind of go on a YouTube channel where some of these people are just kind of people that go to this church and they hear he's talking, so they kind of show up for whatever, I think. So I would assume these people probably are a little less educated on the topics. And not that they're dumb or anything, just they're probably less interested as well, right? So, yes, I think that's why this is an interesting video to kind of look at, because he's really showing us how he views kind of your everyday Christians, which he's really plugged into, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, his YouTube channel's got 400,000 subscribers. He's definitely attracting a lot of people with what he's saying. So, while there's more I could probably say about some specific points he brings up in this video, I want to keep these critical apologetics reviews to somewhere around 20 minutes. So I think this is a good place to kind of end it here. And like I said, I'll be reviewing more stuff. If you're interested in suggesting videos for me to review, I'm going to start leaving a pinned tweet on my Twitter and then a community post that people can respond to on YouTube to kind of give me videos you'd be interested in me looking at, responding to. I'd love to get suggestions from people who actually watch the channel. I really appreciate you watching. If you made it all the way to the end, definitely hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Like I said, I really appreciate you watching. I'm really trying to put some more effort into kind of getting out videos on a regular basis, and I think these kind of critical apologetics reviews will be fun, and they don't have to be super long, super in-depth. Some of them I think I want to get into, like when they make a specific argument, especially maybe if I have a guest like John DePew on, who is even more knowledgeable than I am. We can kind of go deeper into a specific point, kind of refute or agree with a little bit. Maybe just there's some nuance that should be added or something like that. Because not to say everything apologists say are wrong. I just disagree with a lot of stuff that they say, and I think that's what leads to some interesting commentary. But yeah, like I said, if you like this, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I really appreciate you watching. And like I said, just thanks for watching and have a blessed day.